Hello. So I'm starting out today barefaced because we're gonna do our makeup while we chit chat. Okay, so today I kind of wanted to talk about some big reasons, avoidances that you can have when it comes to actually making a quality relationship successful. And I kind of want to talk about this because I feel like relationships do not have to be as hard as we're making them, and there's just such an easy fix. So I feel like I have some input to give there. So I just kind of want to say these things so that way you can kind of like realize it's so much easier than even you have been maybe making it feel. And the first thing that I kind of want to start off by talking about is lying. And I know that's very obvious, but lying entails a lot of things. So obviously, just like telling blatant lies. I don't really think that even a lie in good faith is going to be beneficial to your relationship, because no matter what type of lie you're telling, that easily creates a big rift in your trust. And if there's a lack of trust in the relationship, I rarely see people still make it work while being happy to do so, right? I don't really want to harp too much on that one because I feel like that's just so obvious. But other things that lying includes is honestly putting up a front, not being actually yourself when you meet this person, and like authenticity. If you're not being your authentic self, what's going to end up happening is that you will either, your partner may find themselves in a position where they're like, oh, I feel like this is not the same person that I fell in love with, or like, oh, I got into a relationship with you thinking that things were gonna be this way, when in reality, everything is more so this way. And nobody really wants to be in that spot. So you know what I say? Lay all your morals out, lay all your beliefs out, lay everything down just very honestly, even if it doesn't sound like the most appealing thing. Because in my opinion, I would put myself in a position where it's like, you can have whatever problem that you want to have with me as my partner, but one thing that I will never allow somebody to say is calling me a liar. I would tell people my expectations, my moral code, if you have one, my beliefs, what you can expect in like being in a relationship with somebody like me. What does that look like? And I still try to show like my authentic personality and like who I really am, so that that person, you know, the relationship doesn't have to work out, but like they knew what they were signing up for. I don't like surprises when it comes to that, because nobody wants to feel like you wasted time, right? And I don't like to call any relationship a waste of time, especially like if you learn something from it, and you should always learn something from your relationships. But you know, it could happen really easily, and you don't want to feel like confused, because with confusion, cognitive dissonance is the worst thing in the world. Like, okay, I remember my first relationship, I was like 16, so I was also really young, but like the guy portrayed himself to be a certain way. So when we were together and he started to act vastly different as to the person that he introduced me to, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And part of the reason why it took me so long to leave that relationship is because I was like, no, this isn't him. The person that I fell in love with is this. Where is that guy? Again, it created cognitive dissonance, and that is kind of what prevented me from doing the right things in terms of carrying that relationship out or ending it. It made me have a very hard time seeing new behaviors for what they were. I kind of just kept, you know, again, justifying things and being like, no. Like, girl, if you're crazy, be crazy from day one. At least then you'll know if he likes the crazy. Same with guys. If you're nuts, just be nuts from day one. Let somebody know what they're walking into. No, like, who wants a surprise? You know, you don't want to get roped into something and then you like don't know how to escape because you keep holding on to the person you thought they were. No, just be yourself. It's also just kind of like weird, the idea of trying to be somebody else, because if that person does end up like falling in love with you, you get what you want. It's like, do they really like you for you, or do they like the version of you that you invented? And if that's not who you really are, then it can be kind of uncomfortable. You get what I mean? The next thing that I want to talk about is not trusting yourself or listening to, where is my bronzer? Listening to third-party sources that are toxic. Now, I think personally that there is nothing wrong with seeking out advice/opinions from people that you really trust. But the reason why this can be really hard is a lot of people don't actually know the intentions of somebody. And it's really easy for somebody to give you advice that is going to harm you than it will help you. So that's why I say you really need to have like a solid self-trusting relationship with yourself, because trust me, if you're listening to people on social media talk about your relationship, first of all, they don't know you. I just made a video about this. They don't know you. They don't know your situation. Also, I hate to say this, but a lot of S workers have really come into the social media sphere of dating. And look, I have no problem with like S workers or anything like that, but I do think that things can get really messy if we're us normal people who are looking for a like lifelong companion, we're looking to start like a real relationship, and we're listening to sugar babies and S workers. You can't employ the same tactics that work for that field into finding a lifelong partner. I stand on that 100%. So, you know, we don't really know a lot about the people who are online giving advice. You just hear something that sounds good and it makes you think like, oh, I've got high standards, but it doesn't mean you have high standards by telling people that they should only be with a millionaire, right? That's not what high standards is. High standards is about how you get treated and what you are willing to accept and tolerate. I just think that kind of gets muddy, because if it's not you who's listening to people online talk about those videos, it's probably your friend. And think about it, right? Like when it comes to making your own life decisions, think about your friends, right? What kind of advice do they typically give? Are they people who tell you to do something for the plot? If somebody ever says the phrase, do it for the plot, I just know that they do not have your best interests at heart, because guess what? They don't even have the best interests at heart for their own life. Why would you entrust that in yours? And again, going back to the whole like influencer thing, if she's not an S worker, the girl she's copying probably is, because this social media like hypergamy stuff, the advice is kind of like all the same. It's like chewed up and spit right back out, and then somebody takes that chewed up advice and then just gives the same thing over and over again. Like most of these girls like are not saying anything new, you know? Like they all kind of just copy each other, and they all get popular based off of each other because everybody loves to see a man hater give relationship advice, all while that man hater has not been honest about the way they actually make money. So that's where that self-assurance really comes from. If you need validation externally, you're not going to give it to yourself internally. Nobody knows you like yourself. Nobody knows your situation the way you know it. So why allow anybody to have so much power in your relationship and potentially push you to making a decision that you personally wouldn't stand by? And honestly, I really do understand how scary it is to be the only person who you can really, at the end of the day, turn to, because it is scary to trust yourself. Like, it's scary when you think and you're like, okay, but what if I make the wrong decision? Look, we're all human, right? Nobody is supposed to always make the right decision. Like, that just doesn't exist. We're not supposed to get it perfectly right every time. It's not gonna happen. It is okay to make mistakes. It is okay to be wrong. As long as when you come to the realization that you feel like you were wrong about something, you can be like, oh, okay, I was wrong about that. Now, how do I take that, learn from it, and then just don't repeat the same mistakes? Because again, nothing is a waste of time if you took something from it and you learned something from it. So don't be afraid to make the wrong decision, right? I do like to believe that in the moment, we are all trying to just make the decision that we think is the right one at the time. And sometimes in the long run, that's not the right decision. But I just don't think you should put that pressure on yourself, because if we were all perfect, then like every single day would just be perfect. And honestly, that is so ideal. I like wish that was the reality we live in, but like we just don't. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you don't know how to lose, you don't know how to win. And it's so much better to be like, dang, okay, you know what? I made the wrong choice in that time. Okay, now here's where I can learn. Because, you know, a lot of people do think that if they blame somebody else for something, it kind of makes the problem better. Where, in my opinion, when you don't have anybody to blame but yourself, that is when the situation is the best. Because you don't have to, like, putting the blame on somebody else for your decision, I feel like it just does something so destructive, rather than just saying, you know what, I made a mistake and I will do better next time. When you put the blame on somebody else, it creates so much resentment, and it creates resentment in you, like towards yourself as well as towards that person. And I just don't think that anybody should be responsible for somebody else's life. And really think about people you know in your real life who are like that. Think about people that you know that are content with blaming other people, and ask yourself, do they actually get over their problems? Do they actually seem happy? Does putting the blame elsewhere seem to solve something, or does it not? And from my experience, when I would see people who would constantly just blame everybody else for decisions that they've made, it never actually fixed the problem, and they would still hold so much anger. And the reason is because when you blame somebody else, you don't become exempt. When you blame somebody else, you not only blame them, but you do lump yourself in. And part of the reason why is because you start getting angry at yourself for not trusting yourself in that time to make the decision that was better for you. And yeah, that's a hard place to be. I truly understand. It is easy to want to kind of avoid responsibility, but I promise you, you can't avoid that responsibility for a long time. So you might as well just accept it from the jump and be like, okay, well, now I know for next time. Now I know that I won't do that again. But you know, if you keep blaming everybody else, like, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna let everybody tell you what you should do with your life? And also, I have no clue what I'm doing in terms of this look. I'm really just like winging this. So yeah, I'm also really bad at multitasking, but this is fun anyways. Yeah, we got a little cute purpley crease there. Okay, next topic is relying on a spark. Now, this one is gonna be something that I do hear people talk about, yes. And they tend to be people who are in relationships for a longer time. But I think that those are the people that tend to give the best thoughts, in my opinion. So I think that, you know, you're in a relationship, right? And you may be at a point where you could be questioning things. Do I want to stay in this relationship? Am I happy in this relationship? And a lot of the times people base that feeling off if they are feeling a spark in the relationship or not. And I don't think that relying on a spark is a good thing for a few different reasons. One, it is completely normal for a spark to burn and then die, and then burn and then die throughout a relationship. That's very normal, you know? That is not abnormal. A spark is not going to be lit like a firework from start to finish. That just doesn't happen. Like you get used to the person, you start dealing with real life. It's not gonna be all fun all the time, right? You have to work through hardships. Like, there might be things about them that you don't per se love, and you know, that's normal. When you get into a relationship with somebody, you have to really take it or leave it. See their flaws for what they are and decide for yourself, is that something that I can handle? And if the answer is yes, well, just don't be surprised if a spark is not burning like crazy the whole way through. That is totally okay. That doesn't mean that you need to run away from the relationship. And I noticed that when people are so reliant on the feeling of the spark to be really burning, like super bright, is those people tend to be people who are just way too swayed by their emotions. And now I know on the outside, right, being an emotional person is not a bad thing. I'm an emotional person, right? But There is something wrong when you are somebody who makes decisions completely, solely based off of your emotion. Because like I said, right? So what are you gonna do if the spark is kind of low with your partner that you have right now, and then you meet somebody else and then the spark is strong? What happens then? If you're somebody who is overly like reliant on your emotions to tell you what you should do, that's where we kind of start getting into the category of things like cheating or ending a relationship that might not have been bad in favor of something else that is more exciting. When the same thing happens in that new relationship, let's just say you walked away from your relationship and you entered a new one because the spark was down with this person and the spark was high with this person. When you get into that new relationship, the spark is gonna die again. So then what? What's next? Are you gonna run away from that one too and then go seek out another person where the spark is bright? You see why I'm saying we could kind of get into messy territory when we are overly reliant on our emotions. Like, I am in full support of leaving a relationship if you really are like having doubts and contemplating. I do think it is like great to walk away. But I just encourage people to just think about why, you know, and not have it be something that is just super momentarily and completely emotion based, because you can find yourself in a lot of trouble doing that. And who wants extra drama that doesn't need to be there, you know? I'm contemplating adding a wing to this and I like really don't want to because I don't want to mess it up, but I also feel like it would look so good. But yeah, I really do think that you avoid a lot of drama if you're just able to reflect on things that you've done and see what decisions you still stand by to that day, or what you're like, okay, well, here's what I would do different. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I think that that's actually a lot better for self-recovery and self-growth and making sure that you find yourself only in situations that you are happy to be in. I don't regret any of my relationships because I genuinely do believe that I was making decisions based off of my own wants and desires at that time. And even though they didn't work out, I walked away being like, hey, you know what? No regrets. I tried. I did what I thought was the right thing in that moment. And even if other people disagree, you know, so what? And don't beat yourself up for not making the right choice, because you can also find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, I really wish that I had somebody to tell me all this advice earlier. But, you know, just remember that in that stage of your life, you may not have been ready to listen to that advice. Like, even if somebody was giving it to you, somebody really was giving you like the best advice ever, I mean, it's okay to not buy into it automatically, because sometimes, you know, we gotta get burnt before we learn not to touch a hot stove. And yeah, it sucks because then again, you may find yourself like harping on the fact that you wasted time, or you just wish that you would have known then what you know now. But I mean, when you really think about it, that is kind of the beauty of life, you know? We're learning as we go. And it doesn't always mean that we're gonna make the right choices, but what do we have if not our own experiences? You know, I believe that a big part of who we are is shaped by our experiences, even if that means not always doing the right things. Yeah, so that's pretty much like what I have to say. I think that if you self-affirm yourself, like I'm going to do right now, I think you are very smart and I think you are very capable, and you are very capable of making the right smart decisions. You deserve to be happy. You know, you deserve to be in a place where you feel like you can be yourself, and you deserve to feel like you can make your own decisions. And I will forever stand by that. So once you kind of accept that you have a lot more things in control, you will be a lot happier and you will be a lot more willing to trust yourself, even if it's hard. I know, I've been there. I've done some crazy things in my life. Like, I moved to New York with no job lined up. And I know that's not like relationship related, but it's the fact that I just knew I had to have enough trust and faith in myself to do something. And even if it was a wrong decision, all I had to do was be like, you know what? I did it. I learned from it. And I'm not going to blame anybody else for my decisions. And I'm just going to trust myself, you know? I did that, and it resulted in me having absolutely zero regrets, even though I don't live in New York anymore. I left after like 3 years, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that when everybody around me was telling me that I couldn't. Because that's the other thing. People are going to question your abilities. People are going to question your capability. People are going to tell you a million reasons why you can't do something. And a lot of times it's just out of fear because they could be projecting. Maybe they feel like they couldn't do something, or, you know, that's why you also just gotta, you know, really watch out. Know where somebody is coming from before you take their opinion, you know, because maybe people are right, you know, sometimes it really is what they would have done, but what's good for somebody else is not necessarily going to be good for you. So with all that being said, I don't know if you guys heard that, but there was like a motorcycle or something going by. I'm just going to finish off this makeup look because I realized I did a whole lot of yapping and not enough doing at the correct rate, so. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I kind of hate this lip color with the look that I have going on, but I don't know if I'm going to not be lazy and take it off or what. So for now, this is it. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this kind of video, I do videos like this all the time. If you feel like it could help you or somebody else, subscribe, comment, share with a friend, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.